Today we are having a great endowment lecture on our beloved professor Dr.M. Narasimhacari, founder, professor of the department, a great scholar, Ashukavi, multilingual scholar. Today we are having that professor's endowment lecture. So we start with prayer by Yamini Ramesh.
Bhajahayavadanam Paramapavanam Bhajahayavadanam Paramapavanam Bhaktajanavanam Bhavabhitaranam Bhajahayavadanam Paramapavanam Bhavabhitaranam Bhajahaya Vadanam Paramapavanam Ajarudradigana Sannutacharanam Ajarudradigana Sannutacharanam Acharyottama Vaibhavakaranam Bhajahayavadanam Vishuddha Vijnana Ghana Swarupam Vani Pujita Divya Pratapam Vishuddha Vijnana Ghana Swarupam Vani Pujita Divya Pratapam Aushadhagiri Gata Shrivagisham Aushadhagiri Gata Shrivagisham Aushadhagiri Gata Shrivagisham Ananda Bharitam Aparyaptamritam Bhajahayavadanam Paramapavanam Bhaktajanavanam Bhavabhitaranam Bhajahayavadanam Paramapavanam.
Thank you, ma'am. A wonderful song, flourished in the name of Lord Hayagriva. Tatra Bhavatam Vishwavidyayala Pakshataha Vaishnava Vibhaga Pakshataha Adya Asmat Acharyamapi Vaktum Shakyate. Tatra Bhavatam Professor M. Narasimhacari Mahabhaganam Namna Ayojita Sabha Imam Alankrutavatam Sasuhut Sishyaha iti Vaktum Shakyate. Tasya Savidhe BA Taha Shodhaka Pariyantam Ajanmanaha Antevasinaha Professor Radhakrishnan Mahabhagaha Vaishnava Pakshataha Swagatam Vyaharami. Pasayil Nanmarai Gaduthu Ammalaraya Karuli Mun Parimuhamai Isaigul Vedanul Yennivai Payandavane Yanakkarul Puriye Isaigul Madhavi Podarulavia Marudam Vidi Envai Isayellam Kamalum Polil Sul Tiruvallare Ninnane. Narasimhacari அவருடைய உபாசன தெய்வத்தம் ஹயக்ரீவர். எப்பயுமே அவர் எந்த ஒரு சபாவா இருந்தாலும் ஹயசிரோ மேல ஒரு ஸ்லோகத்தை சொல்லித்தான் ஆரம்பிப்பார். எனக்கு பர்சனலாக கடைசியாக ஒரு எமிரேட் ப்ரொஃபஸராக சான்ஸ்கிரிட் டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்டுக்கு ரொம்ப நாள் கழிச்சு என்டர் ஆகி எங்களுக்கு காவிய பிரகாசம் நைஷதம் நடத்தினர். அது பெரிய ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டி. அவர்கிட்ட படிக்கக்கூடியதான 2 கிரந்தங்கள் எங்களுக்கு கிடைச்சது. அதுல அவர் சொன்ன விஷயம் என்ன அப்படின்னா, ரொம்ப நாள் கழிச்சு என்னுடைய ஓன் பிச்சுக்கு நான் வந்திருக்கேன்ப்பா அப்படின்னு சொன்னேன். அந்த ரிமெம்பரிங் வேர்ட்ஸ் எனக்கு இன்னும் காவிய பிரகாசம் நடத்தும் போது, ரொம்ப நாள் ஆச்சுப்பா நான் காவிய பிரகாசம் எல்லாம் நடத்தி, இப்பதான் எனக்கு அந்த ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டி கிடைச்சது அப்படின்னு ஒரு 20 years பேக் நாங்க படிக்கும் போது அவர் சொன்னார். நரசிம்மாச்சாரிய ப்ரொஃபஸரை பத்தி சொல்லணும் அப்படின்னா, அதுக்கு ஆப்டா யார் இருப்பார்கள் அப்படின்னா நம்ம ப்ரொஃபசர் ராதாகிருஷ்ணன் அவர்கள் தான். ஏன்னா அவருடைய ஃபுல் விஷயங்கள் என்ன, அவர் போன பிறகு கூட அவருடைய கிருஷ்ண சரிதம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லக்கூடியதான ஒரு காவியத்தை அவர் எடிட் பண்ணி இது பண்றார். பல மேனஸ்கிரிப்ட்ஸ் இருக்கு எங்க டிபார்ட்மெண்ட்லயே. அவர் எழுதின ஸ்லோகங்கள்லாம் அங்கங்க ஃபிராக்ரன்ஸா இருக்கு, ஏதோ எடுத்து வச்சிருக்கோம் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னு. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி பல விஷயங்கள் அவர் எழுதினதெல்லாம் கலெக்ட் பண்ணி இவர் புஸ்தகமா போட்டிருக்காரு. அதுல முக்கியமான கிருஷ்ண சரித்தம் அப்படின்றது. ஸோ அப்படியேப்பட்டதான ஒரு கிரேட் ப்ரொஃபசர் நம்மளுடைய சம்ஸ்கிருத உலகத்துக்கும் இந்த வைணவ உலகத்திற்கும் ஒரு பாலமாக இருந்தவர். அவருடைய பேர்ல அவருடைய ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் எல்லாம் வைத்ததான ஒரு எண்டோமெண்ட். ஒரு ஸ்லோகத்தை சொல்லி முடிச்சுட்டு ப்ரொஃபசர் அவர் அவரை டாக் ஆன் ஆபஹா, ஜலத்தினுடைய பெருமை வேதத்திலும் மற்றும் சம்ஸ்கிருத இலக்கியங்களிலும் எவ்வாறாக இருக்கிறது. வாட்டர் as gleaned from the Vedic and Classical Sanskrit literature. ஏன்னா நீரன்றி அமையாது உலகம் என்று சொல்லி இருப்பது போல நமக்கு சர்வ சுத்தியும் ஏற்படுத்துவது எது அப்படின்னா ஆபஹா. அது மட்டும் இல்லாமல் ஆபஹா வாரி தீர்த்தம் இந்த மாதிரி வச்சுக்கலாம். ஆச்சாரியர்களுக்கும் தீர்த்தன் என்று பெயர் உண்டு. ஸோ அப்பேற்பட்டதான ஆச்சாரியனுடைய ஒரு சொற்பொழிவாக இது அமையப் போகிறது. அது எப்படின்னா எம்பெருமானுடைய அதீனம் என்று சொல்லுவார்கள். சுவாமி தேசிகன் யாதவாபியதயத்துல சொல்லும் பொழுது அனன்யாதீன மகிமா சுவாதீன பரவைபவா தயாதீன விகாரஸ்துவம் பிரணதான் பரிபாகினா அப்படின்னு சொல்ற. எல்லாம் அவனுடைய அருள், இன்னருள். அது மாதிரி இன்னைக்கு நமக்கு ஒரு இன்னருள் எம்பெருமானால நமக்கு கிடைத்திருக்கிறது. என்னன்னா நம்மளுடைய ப்ரொஃபஸருடைய ஒரு வாய்ப்பு. நான் கேட்கும் பொழுது அவர் க்ஷேத்ராட்டணத்திலே எங்கேயோ இருந்தார். அப்படியே நம்மளுடைய கேட்ட உடனேவே எங்க ப்ரொஃபஸர் ஐ வில் அக்செப்ட் த இன்விடேஷன் என்று சொன்னார். இன்னொரு விஷயம் கிராட்டிடியூட் சொல்லணும் அப்படின்னா, இன்னைக்கு நான் இங்க இருக்கேன்னா அதுல ஒரு காரணம் ப்ரொஃபஸர், அதையும் சொல்லணும். இங்க இருக்கக்கூடியதான இந்த பொசிஷன்ல அதுக்கு ஒரு காரணம் ப்ரொஃபஸர். ஸோ grateful thank to Professor Radhakrishnan for accepting this invitation in the prestigious endowment lecture. So ப்ரொஃபஸர் அவருடைய உரையை ஆரம்பிப்பார். தேங்க்யூ சார்.
Namaskar. My dear Dr. Dayanidhi, who is heading the Department of Vaishnavism in Madras University, and the learned scholars, admirers, students, research scholars, and particularly students of Dr. Narasimhacari. I find Professor Tyagarajan also in this Zoom meet. It is indeed a very good fortune for me, I should say, to deliver the Endowment lecture in honor and in memory of my late lamented Guru, preceptor, mentor, friend, guide, and philosopher, Dr. Narasimhacari. Before I commence, I wish to recite a few slokas, which has been a practice of my Guru, Sri Mudumbai Narasimhacari, and as aptly commenced today, with a very beautifully rendered song on Hayavadana, Bhaja Hayavadana, very beautifully it was rendered. And which Dr. Narasimhacari also, in whichever meeting he addressed, he used to follow this. So I commence with a prayer sloka on Sri Hayagriva, followed by a few slokas on what Dr. Narasimhacari stood for. Hayagriva Subhagriva Sarvaradhida Vigraha Hayagriva Subhagriva Sarvaradhida Vigraha Dehi Vidya Pravinatvam Madagraham Anugraham Dehi Vidya Pravinatvam Madagraham Anugraham Shri Vaishnavagama Mahodadi Somarupam Shri Vaishnavagama Mahodadi Somarupam Lakshmi Hayasya Paripurna Kripaiga Patram Lakshmi Hayasya Paripurna Kripaiga Patram Shriman Nrisimha Gurum Apradima Prabhavam Shriman Nrisimha Gurum Apradima Prabhavam Vandamahe Gunanidim Varadeshikam Naha Vandamahe Gunanidim Varadeshikam Naha Girvanyam Angla Bhashayam Andhra Dravidayostata Girvanyam Angla Bhashayam Andhra Dravidayostata Pandityam Sadgurorasya Sreshtam Anyadrisham Tata Pandityam Sadgurorasya Sreshtam Anyadrisham Tata Ramayane Bhagavate Purane Vedanta Sukshmeshu Cha Pancharatre Ramayane Bhagavate Purane Vedanta Sukshmeshu Cha Pancharatre Sri Vaishnave Tadyata Sampradaye Jnanam Guroho Sagaravati Anupamam Sri Vaishnave Tadyata Sampradaye Jnanam Guroho Sagaravati Anupamam Adhyapane Shishya Hidaiga Diksha Vishesha Bhave Vinaye Dayayam. These are all his great virtues of Dr. Narasimhacari. Adhyapane Shishya Hidaiga Diksha Vishesha Bhave Vinaye Dayayam Edadrishaha Sadguruhu Atra Loge Na Drishyate Shri Narasimhatulyaha Edadrishaha Sadguruhu Atra Loge Na Drishyate Shri Narasimhatulyaha Shishyatvam Esham Sukrutena Labdham Maya Hi Janmantara Punyalabhat Shishyatvam Esham Sukrutena Labdham Maya Hi Janmantara Punyalabhat Tatsmaragam Bhashanamadhyakartum Yatnam Karishyami Bhaktya Yatamati Tatsmaragam Bhashanam Adhyakartum Yatram Karishyami Bhaktya Yatamati. Namasarvebhyaha. When Dr. Dayanidhi called me last week whether it will be possible to render the endowment lecture in honor of Dr. Narasimhacari. When he called me, actually I was very much in Alwad Tirunagari, inside the premises of Sri Namalva's temple, which I am very fond of visiting because it was on this topic that I had the good fortune of doing research under the most stable guidance of Dr. Narasimhacari. I had the good fortune of studying under him in Vivekananda College for BA and MA. And as I completed MA, I was just planning to do PhD in the University of Madras. And as good fortune would be for me, in favor of me, on the same year, Dr. Narasimhacari joined the Department of Sanskrit in University of Madras as reader in Sanskrit. So I was the first one, the full-time scholar to register for PhD under him, to which I really take pride in claiming, because my studentship under him is responsible for whatever I am today. And he is such a versatile scholar. He had a great training under Uttamur Veeracharya Swami and great stalwarts in this field. And he was equally versatile in Sanskrit or Telugu or Tamil or English, so much so that when he was a visiting professor in Oxford University, many times he has gone there. And even professors from other departments used to attend his lecture for the sheer joy of even listening to his English rendering. So such a brilliant scholar, Dr. Narasimhacari was. And he is the founder, head of the Department of Vaishnavism of University of Madras, which is a very flourishing department. And it is my good privilege to give this lecture, endowment lecture, in honor of him. In fact, as Dr. Dayanaji mentioned, among his many writings, he has written also a Mahakavya on Bharata Darshanam of all the great scholars and devotees of Bharata Desha. That is yet to be published. I had earlier published this Sri Krishna Charidam. And the last poem that he composed, Hanumat Panchajamaram, he had sent it to me in my mail. And soon after coming to India, he fell ill and he was bedridden, and he reached the sacred feet of Lord Mahavishnu. And as a fitting tribute to him, this Hanumat Panchajamara was released on the 13th day of his giving up the mortal body. And there are many works written by Dr. Narasimhacari which are yet to be published. And I am sure the Department of Vaishnavism will take it up as a project and do this, because the department owes its very existence and great name to such a great scholar. I have chosen this topic particularly, Apaha, the water as gleaned from the Vedic literature and the Sanskrit literature. First of all, there is a line of demarcation between the Vedic Sanskrit and the classical Sanskrit, for which we say the Ramayana is the line of demarcation. After that, it is classical period. And deliberately, I gave this name as Apaha, because Apaha is a very sacred word. Though there are so many other words, nearly 101 words are there for Jalam. Yaska gives a list of 101 words. We have so many words like Jalam, Tirtham, Vari, Toyam, and all that. But Apaha has a special connotation and usage. Ever since creation, water has touched every aspect of human life, whether it's biological or cultural or purificatory or ritualistic or even in literature, aiding the travel and the trade. Very difficult to find a field where water is not connected. Trade through water and travel also through water. So while the Rig Veda, which is the earliest literature known to mankind, commences with a hymn on Agni. We know Agni Mele Purohitam Ratnyasya Devam Vrittidvam. On the other hand, the Atharvana Veda begins with the invocation to water goddess for not only a continuous flow for drinking, but also for the welfare of the entire mankind. We have that mantra, Shamno Devihi Abhishtaye Apo Bhavantu Pitaye, not Bhitaye. Sometimes we find Pa and bha, if it is interchanged, it conveys a totally opposite meaning. Apo bhavantu pitaye, for patumichata. Shamyoho abhisravantunaha. So let this water flow for the welfare of the mankind. The Rigveda itself devotes 4 hymns to glorify the waters. The word apaha has a very special usage because it is used only in plural and it is a feminine gender word. It may sound like singular, apaha, like Ramaha. Apaha itself is plural only. Adbyaha, adbyasambodha prithivi. It is used only in plural and in feminine gender. This could be one of the reasons why most of the rivers in India have the feminine names. Gangeja, Yamune, Jeva, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmada, Sindhu, Kaveri, Jalasmin, Sandhini, Guru. That's what we say. And whichever name, whichever river you take, Tamraparni, on the banks of which I am presently situated now. So most of the rivers are having the feminine names, perhaps because of this fact that apaha is used in feminine gender. The Vedic hymns pay eulogies on them as the sacred ones arising from the ocean and released by Lord Indra. In their midst is Lord Varuna, who is looking at the truth and untruth of the people. Varuna is keeping a watch. Imam me Varuna. There we have this mantra, Jane Abhidroha Manushyaha Charamasi. He is carefully watching who is doing the right thing and who is doing the wrong thing. The deification, that is to project a water as a goddess, which we find a corresponding feature in the Zend Avastha also as Apo. There also we have a goddess by name Apo, water goddess. It is clothed in poetic description. A separate hymn is dedicated to Apam Napat, considered by the scholars as referring to the fire. Fire is considered as the son of the water, because Akashat Vayuhu, Vayor Agnihi, Agner Apaha, Adbyaha Prithivi, Prithivyam Oshadyaha, Oshadibhyaha Nam. So that is the sequence of creation according to the Upanishads. The Upanishads speak of the origin of the world in a sequence such as the Akasha from the Atman, and Vayu from the Akasha, fire from the Vayu, water from the fire, and earth from the water, and the plants from the earth, and so on. The Taittiriya Upanishad very clearly says, Tasmadva etasmad atmanaha akashaha sambhutaha. Akashad vayuhu, vayoho agnihi, agnehe apaha, adbyaha prithivi, prithivyam oshadayaha, oshadibhyaha nam. Like that it continues. There are references in the Vedas to everything originating from the water. The Shatapada Brahmana, for instance, says that everything is born out of water. I quote, Tasmai namandam janayatyapaha vai janayo adhyaha hi idam sarvam jayate. Everything is born out of water. Apo yantyedam sarvam jayate yedidam kimcha. Again from the Shatapada Brahmana. The Dharma Shastra texts also have a similar view that Brahma has created water as the first entity. It was water which was created by Brahma for the first time. Apaha eva sasarja adau Brahma dravinam evahi. Manusmriti says. Apaha eva sasarja, he created adau Brahma dravinam evahi. It is obviously in consonance with this view that Kalidasa speaks in the very first benedictory sloka of his magnum opus, the Shakuntala, where he speaks of the Ashtamurti concept of Lord Shiva, consisting of the 5 elements, Panchabhuta, the Chandra and Surya, and the Yajamana. And there he says, Ya Srishtihi Srashtuhu Adya, that is water. Ya Srishtihi Srashtuhu Adya, Bahadi Vidihudam Ya Havihi Yachahotri, Ye Dve Kalam Vidattaha, Shruti Vishaya Guna Yastida Vyapya Vishwam, Ya Mahuhu, Sarvabhuta Pragradiredi, Yaya Praninaha Pranavantaha, Pratyakshabihi Prapannaha Tanubihi Avaduvaha, Tabihi Ashtabihi Ishaha. So Kalidasa also refers to water as the first creation, just as Manusmriti also and the other Smritis also mention this. Another Vedic hymn says that everything is permeated by the entity called water. Apo va idakam sarvam vishwa bhutanyavaha prana vayapaha pashav apaha annam apaha amrutam apaha samrat apaha virat apaha swarat apaha chantagumsi apaha jyoti apaha yajugumsi apaha satyam apaha sarvaha devataha apaha. So when you refer to the Sri Tiruvalluvar's statement, near into Amayadu Ulaga, everything is consisting of water only. Incidentally, this is the mantra. Namaste, Professor Vikesan Raghavanji. Incidentally, this is the mantra which is chanted for purification of the body as part of the daily worship. In Sandhya Vandana, we chant this Apo Vaidikam Sarvam and also Apo Vishta Mayo Boha. Another mantra says that this sprinkling of water accompanied by this chant is bound to purify the physical body which comprises the earthly matter, because our physical sharira consists of the Parthiva Amsha. That's a Parthiva Sharira we say. Parthiva Sharira Masmadadinam. In Jaya also we have. And there, when we sprinkle this water, we chant this mantra, Apa Punandu Prithivi, Prithivi Puta Punadumam, Punanda Brahmanaspatihi, Brahma Puta Punadumam, Educhushtam Abhojyam, Edvat, Duschardam Mava, Sarvam Punandu Mam, Apaha Asadanta Pradigrahagam Swaha. So we eat in so many places, we accept food. And thereby pollute our own physical body. Deho Devalaya Protaha. Its purity has to be maintained. And it is by sprinkling this water that the body is purified. And another mantra is Apo Hishtama Yobuvaha. And in this context, Manu says, Agne, there are 4 methods of purifying our physical body. What are they? Agneyam Basmana Snanam, Avagahyam tu Varunam, Apo Hishtetita Brahmam, Vayavyam Go Rajasmritam. Agneyam Basmana Snanam. By applying the sacred ash, that is one way of purifying the physical sharira, that is a snana. Avagahyam tu Varunam. When we plunge into the water, a well or a pond or a lake or a river, that is Varuna. Apohishteti Brahmam. And by sprinkling water on our physical body, that is Brahma. And Vayavyam Go Rajaha Smritam. And the column of dust emitted from the hoof of the cows, Godhuli, that is so sacred that it purifies our body. That is called as Vayavya. The Nigantu, which is the earliest lexicon, not only in Sanskrit, perhaps in the entire world, enlists as many as 101 names for water, while there are 30 names for the cloud. Utaka Namani Eka Shatam. That's what the Nigantu says. And the word Udakam itself is derived from the root Unati as that which is flowing, or also from Undik Kledane as that which drenches, where Naloba makes it Udakam. Najanam Kletan Chabaha Nashoshedi Mardaha. Kledana is to make it drench. So that's why this word has been formed as Udakam. According to Nigantu, 3 entities affect the earth: the cloud, the air, and the sun or the Surya. You can mute the others, Dr. Sayanand. The cloud, the air, and the sun. Trayaha tapanti prativim anupaha parjanyaha vayu aditya. And of this, Parjanya, the cloud, the former showers water downwards, whereas the other two, Vayu and Aditya, they take the water upward and they help in the formation of the cloud. And another very strange thing is mentioned about the water. Yva Rubhugam Vahataha Purisham Vaivaditya Udagam. That is, Vayu Aditya, they take the water from below upward, whereas the cloud is pouring the water downward. And another very strange thing is that Itam Babuhu Nivajanam Janasaha Charanti Yade Nadyaha Tastuhu Apaha. This is again from the Veda. When we say there is a river, what is this river? It is nothing but a flowing water. But sometimes we say there is no water in the river. If there is no water, how can we call it as a river? And whether the water in the river is static or flowing. And there this Vedic mantra says, Idam babuhu nivatanam janasaha charanti yadu nadyaha tastuhu apaha. Nadyaha charanti apaha tastuhu. The rivers are flowing, but the water is static. And what does it mean? It means that obviously one aspect is the divine, while the other aspect is the flowing water. The flowing water is meant for the welfare of the mankind, whereas the divine aspect of the water, which is static, it is for the welfare not only of the human beings, but other Jiva Rashis, but also even of the other gods. Because the water goddesses impart the strength and vigor to all the Devatas, to all the deities. That's why Rigveda has a mantra which says, Yasu Raja Varunaha, Yasu Somaha, Vishwe Devaha, Yasu Urjam Madanti, Vaishwanaraha, Yasu Agnihi Pravishtaha, Taha Apaha Devihi Iha Mam Avantu. So those goddesses, Apaha, Mam, Avantu, let them protect me. That is the meaning of this Vedic mantra. So they, from whom Varuna, the king, and Soma, and all the deities drink strength and vigor, they into whom Vaishwana Agni entered. Here, let those waters, the goddesses, protect me. That is the meaning. It is quite understandable that Atharvana Veda commences with an invocation to the water deities. As I told you earlier, Shamno Devihi Abhishtaye Apo Bhavantu Pitaye Samyor Abhishravanduna. There are as many as 37 names for the rivers. Nadi Namani Uttarani Saptatrimshat Niruktakara Yaska says. There are 37 names for Nadi. The etymology of the word Nadi is that it is something which produces the sound when it is flowing. Yaska says, Nadyaha Tasmad Nadanaha Imaha Bhavanti Shabdavatyaha. They produce the sound that flowing of the water in the river, it produces the sound, you see. The rivers are also called as Nimnaga. Nimna Desham Gachati iti Nimnaga. Since water is always flowing downwards, it is to be noted that the Panchabhutas have been analyzed by our ancient scholars in their scriptures in such a way that these five of them, the earth, the water, the fire, the air, and the akasha, each one is having its own inherent trait. What is that? And based on the trait, they have been named so. Accordingly, the words have been coined in consonance with their movement. The earth is called as Stira. The earth is a static. Stira or Prithvi Vistar, it is very vast. While the Vayu is called as Sadagadihi. It is called as Gandhavaha or Sadagadihi. Always it is moving. And there is no question of the movement so far as Akasha is concerned, because Akasha is all pervasive. So where is Akasha not present that it has to travel from one end to other? It is everywhere. And in the case of the fire or Agni, it is called as Urdhadvalana. Bhaga says, Prasiddham Urdhadvalanam Havirbujaha. And another word coined for the Agni is Tanu Napat. Tanu Napat. Its body will never go downwards, it will always go upward only. And in the case of water, it is Nimnaga. It is always flowing downward. That is the trend of the water. So even the words have been coined based on the very nature of each of these 5 elements, in which we have this water also. The epics and the Puranas, which are the treasure house of all our ancient stories and mythology, speak of the celestial limbs who are water-born. They are hence called as Apsaras. They are known as Apsaras. In fact, they are the celestial limbs who dance in front of Lord Indra in the celestial world. And this concept is not just confined to India alone. Even in the Southeast Asian countries, if you go to Thailand or Indonesia, you will find their form of dance is called as Apsaras, Apsara dance. So they train the students in such a way. And most of the mudras that we come across in the Narasya Shastra, they also follow, and they call it by the name Apsaras. Now coming to the Adikavya, Ramayana, which is the first of the 2 Itihasas, we find that in Valmiki, we find a progressive transition. He was said to be a robber earlier. Then he became a sage by the advice of Sage Valmiki. And even at that time, he had just listened to the story of Rama from the mouth of Valmiki, from the mouth of Narada, which is called as Sankshepa Ramayana, for many questions raised by him. That is how the Ramayana commences. Tapaswadhyaya nirdam tapasvi vagvidambaram nardam paripapracha Valmiki munibungavam. He raised several 16 questions he raises. Konvasmin sampratam loge, like that. And for that, Narada says, for all the 16 questions, the answer is one. There's only one person who has all the virtues mentioned by you, and it is Rama's story, and he tells him that story. And Valmiki listens to that. And he goes to the river Tamasa for taking bath, and he is accompanied by his disciple called Bharadwaja. And while going to the, going near the river Tamasa, he looks at this river, and it is, first of all, the water of the river which captivates his mind. There he says, Satu Tiram Samasadya Tamasayaha Munihi Tada Sahatu Tiram Samasadya Tamasayaha Munihi Tada Shishyam Aha Stitam Parshve Trishtva Tirtam Akardamam. Having looked at this Tirtha of Tamasa river, which is Akardama, which is very clear. And there he says, Akardamam idam Tirtam Bharadwaja Nishamaya Ramaniyam Prasannambu San Manushya Manoyatha. Such a wonderful slogan it is. Akardamam idam Tirtam. So he says, he calls Bharadwaja and says, you please look at this crystal clear water of Tamasa river. Akardamam idam Tirtam Bharadwaja Nishamaya Ramaniyam Prasanna Ambu San Manushya Manahayata. And he gives a comparison also. It is just like the pure mind of a Sajjana. Basically, the mind is unpolluted, it is pure. But there are other chances that the mind gets polluted. Because here again, there is an indication that the mind of Kaikeyi, which was very Prasannambu, like that, it was made turbid by Manthara. That's why Bhoja in Shambhu Ramana, he says, Mahishi Iva Manthara Nirma Mantha. Like a Mahishi, like a buffalo, this Manthara entered. She spoiled the mind of Kaikeyi, just like a buffalo which enters a lotus pond having very crystal clear water. And because of the entry of the buffalo, that water becomes so turbid and muddy. So Akardamam, and not only that, this is the first Kavya. And here again, we find all the references indirectly to what constitutes a kavya. Because how should a kavya be? Kavya should be shabdartho sagito kavyam. And adoshav, sagunav. And here, akardamam, it corresponds to adoshav. Prasannambu, prasanna, prasada guna is prasanna. Okay, and it appeals to san manushya manoyada. It appeals to the sakritaya. So there are a lot of possibilities of interpreting this sloka. Akardamam idam tirtam bharatvad nishamaya ramaniyam ramaniya artha pratibadagaha shabdaha kavyam. So Ramaniyata is the great, that is the soul of poetry. So here Agardamatva and Ramaniyatva and Prasannata, everything is equally applicable to Kavya also. So in this one sloka, we find lot of theories about Valmiki as the first poet and how he developed that taste for description. Now Udita, Kavita, Loke, Yavade, Jadana, Varnana. As long as there is no description, there is no poetry. So the first instance of this description starts with water. He started describing the water only. Then only that incident of the crownja bird happened. Therefore, this is perhaps a veiled indication to the mind of man, which can be polluted just as that of Kaikeyi, which was later polluted by Manthara. The customary practice of offering water to the honorable guests is reflected in the earliest epic. When Lord Brahma appeared in front of sage Valmiki, Valmiki offered him water and asana, pada argyasana vandanai. That's what he himself says. He offered him water and asana also. There is a customary procedure of showing hospitality to a deity invoked in a lump of turmeric paste, such as asana. When we invoke any Ishta Devata in a Haridra Bimba, then we offer all this, as part of the Upachara, asana, padyam, argyam, achamaniyam, snanam. You find that in every aspect of this, water is involved. Like, leaving alone asana, padyam, argyam, achamaniyam, and snana. Here, excepting the first one, all the other four involve the offering of water for specific purpose of washing the feet, sipping, and the bath. It is this practice which is reflected in the poem of no less a person than the Kalidasa himself, when he says that Himavan, the king of the mountains, received the 7 sages with water. When the 7 sages came to Oshadi Prastha to talk to Himavan on behalf of Lord Shiva, because Parvati did penance to marry Shiva, and he tested her and appeared also, and he even told her, Adya Prabhuti, Amanadankit Avasmi Dasaha, Kritaha Tabobihi, you have literally purchased me with the power of your penance. I have become your Dasa. But immediately they did not marry or decide within themselves. Parvati told him, Dada me Bhubridam Nadaha Pramani Kriyatam iti. You better approach my father to make it as an arranged marriage. And whom else would Shiva think of? Because he has none else excepting the 7 sages. Then he called them, and they are very happy to go on this mission. And they went to the Oshadi Prastha, where they could easily identify Himavan. Very beautifully called as discussed that Dadu Tambradaraha Pramshuhu Devadaru Brihad Bujaha Pragritya Eva Shiloraskaha Subjektaha Himavan iti. So there again the two aspects of Himavan as a mountain and Himavan as the king of all the mountains. Both the things are explained in one and the same sloga. Dadu Tambra Adaraha Pramshuhu Devadaru Brihad Bujaha Pragritya Eva Shila Uraskaha Subjektaha Himavan iti. They could easily identify, and he also Durade Pratyudyayo Girihi. He came running to welcome the 7 sages. And what did he do? First of all, Tane Argyam Adaya Durade Pratyudyayo Girihi. He brought water and received them. So there again, offering water is the first gesture to welcome a guest. In an earlier instance also, when Shiva came in a disguise as a brahmachari, Ata Ajinashadharaha Pragalbhavag Jwalanniva Brahmamayena Tejasa Vivesha Kaschidi Jadilaha Tamovanam Sharira Baddhaha Pradam Asamo Yata. He came there to test Parvati whether she is really in deep devotion with the Lord Shiva. And what does he say to her when he was received by Parvati? Saparjaya Pratyujaya Parvati. She received him with that. And the first question he asked was, Api Kriyartam Sulabam Samit Kusham Jalanyabi Snana Vidikshamanite. Are you able to get kusha and other holy twigs for your penance? Jalanyabit Snana Vidikshamanite. Do you have very clear, pure water for all your observation of the vow or the niyama? So this practice of the worship of the twilight, the Sandhya, invariably involves the offering of water to the planets and the deities. Manu says, Achamya Prayadaha Nityam Ubhe Sandhye Samahitaha Shuchau Deshe Japam Japyam Upasita Yatha Vidhi. So first of all, we should sit what Achamya Prayadaha Nityam Ubhe Sandhye. The annual obstacle ceremony comprises offering of water mixed with tila, we say tila tarpana, we say. Further, during the performance of any ritual, there is this practice of touching the water for purification. Now, very often we have this instruction, abhopaspashya. So after everything, we have to touch water for purification. There is also the habit of touching the right ear after every exhaling of the breath in the pranayama. And even now, it is a customary practice when we chant or do some rituals, when we touch things which we are not supposed to do, or for instance, the hair, or after doing pranayama, we touch the right ear. Why? It is here that we have the great story in the Mahabharata, which many of you know, that Bhagirath brought Ganga for the sake of performing the tarpana for his mains, who are in thousands in number. And he propitiated Lord Shiva, and Shiva was kind enough to release the Ganga. And she was released from the jata of Shiva, and she came flowing from the divine world to the earth, and later she went to the Patala Loka. That's why she is called as Tripadagamini. And while touching the ground on the earth and flowing fast, perhaps she was very unhappy that she had to touch this mortal world. She was flowing so fast that she devastated the ashrama or the hermitage of sage Janhu. And Janhu Muni was so angry that he sipped the Ganga in one chulaga, in one sip, Achudaya Namaha, that's all. And as per the story, this Bhagirath came back tracing the flow of the river, and ultimately he understood that Janhu Muni has drunk the entire water of Ganga. And he requested him, and Janhu Muni was happy, and he released the water through the ears. And that's why Ganga is also called as Janhavi. And it is believed that those who perform these rituals, for them also, the Ganga is supposed to flow from the ears. That's why even today we have this practice of touching the ears as part of our rituals. So in many such ritualistic instances, we find the presence of water, particularly so of the Ganga. And it is further glorified by the fact that Shankaracharya, the well-known founder of Advaita system of philosophy, composed the Gankashtaka, or the 8 verses on the greatness of the holy river. The texts on Dharma Shastra prescribe very strict measures to maintain the purity of water. You know, the Malamutra Visarjana is totally prohibited according to the Dharma Shastra. It says, Napsu Mutram Purisham Va, Stevanam Va, Samutsrided. One should not pollute the water by urination or by spitting on the water and all that. So, such measures they had taken care of even at ancient times, because water is so sacred and so pure that as mankind, we should not pollute the water, whether it is a river or well or a pond or whatever the collection of water. This text deals also with the polity besides on the code of conduct. The Manusmriti, for instance, says that it is better to have lakes or wells or streams along the borders of two neighboring countries. Manu says that when there are two countries, what is the Sima or the border? He says, Tatagani, Udapanani, Vapyaha, Prasravanani cha, Sima Sandhishu Karyani, Devata Ayatanani cha. Either you have a temple or you have all these things. What are they? All are collection of waters. Tatagani, Udapanani, Vapyaha, Prasravanani cha, Sima Sandhishu Karyani. When two states or countries they have a meeting place, a border, there better that we have all these collections of water. Kalidas alludes to a practice that one should accompany a person to see him off only as far as the water point. Now, when we want to see off a person, our own relative, it depends upon where he is going. Suppose he is in the same place, he is just going to the town and coming back. From this house itself, you will say, okay, bye. Suppose he is going to another state, he is traveling by train, there you may go up to the railway station and see him off. If he is going to Videsha and he is catching a flight from Delhi, you may even go up to Delhi and from there you may see him off. So our seeing of a relation or a dear person depends upon the distance that he is going to travel. But as per the Shastra, Kalidasa says, Odagandam snigdho janaha anugandavyaha. When Shakuntala was sent to the court of Dushyanta, Gautami, Shargarava, Sharadvada, and Kanva, they came from the ashrama and they accompanied Shakuntala. But at one point, sage Kanva stopped. He said, Odagandam Udagandam Snigdojanaha Anugandavyaha. I am permitted to accompany you only up to this water body. Beyond that, I cannot come. That is the Shastra. Therefore, I stop here. These two will come and escort you. So we find such instances even in the dramas. And watering the plants have been hailed by many texts. It is even equated with the religious rite of the annual ceremony. Aputrasya tu putritvam Padabaha eva kurvate. There's a Subhashita which says that Aputrasya, if there is someone who doesn't have an issue or a child, Putratvam Padabaha eva kurvate. The tree is planted, it can be considered as the son of that person. Because the tree, it helps generations of people and it produces fruits which can be tasted by the people or offered to the deities. It produces flowers which can be offered to the temple deities. And whenever it rains, that water which is flowing on the river, on that tree and flowing down, that is offering to the Pitris. So like that, even a tree is considered as equal to a son. Dashaputra Samaha Vrikshaha. Another Subhashita says. And not only that, Shakuntala herself had a great regard for the tree. Padumna Pradamam Gyapasthete Jalam Vishmasu Apiteshuya. Shakuntala would not drink water without planting, without watering all those plants and trees. Such an affinity she had for that, for all the plants. And even in the ways of worship, we say Ganga, Gita, Gayatri, Tulsika, Gopika, Chantanam, Salagrama, Puja. 8 things are mentioned by Narayana Bhattacharya where he says Ganga. So that's why even Shankaracharya says Bhagavad Gita, Kinchit Adita, Ganga, Jalalava, Kanika, Pita. Have you tasted at least a few drops of Ganga Jala? Otherwise, life is a waste. So it touches every aspect of our life. Significantly, one of the great innovations in the deviation of the story is introduced by Kalidas. that Shakuntala loses the ring given to her by King Dushyanta in a lake called Shaki Tirtha. The word Tirtha itself, which originally means water. Utakanamani, Ekashatam, 100 words, 101 words are there, in which this is also another word, namely Tirtha. But it has a special significance also. It has now come to mean a sacred place of pilgrimage. That's why even Kalidasa says, Yadi adhyasitam arhadbihi tatuhi tirtham pradakshate. So whatever is, whichever place a great Mahan resides there, we say Mantralaya is a tirtha. Because Raghavendra Swami resided there. Say. So any place, Yadi adhyasitam arhadbihi tatuhi tirtham pradakshate. In fact, I am sometimes wondering whether Kalidasa's usage of the word arhate and tirtha, because these two terms significantly we come across in the Jaina philosophy. They are called as tirthankaras, and arhat, it is used by the Jains only. And some again Kalidasa's usage is very strange. Yadi adhyasidam arhatbihi tatuhi tirtham pradakshate. It is for this reason that any pilgrimage is called as tirthatanam. In the Mahabharata, it is during one such tirthatana that Arjuna gets the Pashpadastra weapon from Lord Shiva. And the word tirtha is a sacred expression, and it is an appellation given to the acharyas. See, among the Dashanami system, we say we have such words like Giri, Saraswati, Ananta, Tirtha, from Bharati, Tirtha. So this is a very sacred name of the Tirtha. And in the marriage rituals also, we have the Abhyanga Snana, and we have the purificatory Snana called the Agamashana Snana. And not only that, even the the Snataka, when a student completes his studies, okay, he is called as Vidya Snataka or Tirtha Snataka, Vidya Tirtha Snataka. So that's a Snatakottara Chatrana we say. So it has come to be applied even to that extent. Now coming to the literature, one of the features of a Mahakavya is that it should describe water sports, Jala Krida, Ujjana Salila Krida, Madhuvana Radotsavehi is one of the Lakshana of a Mahakavya. In his prose romance, the Kadambari, Banabhatta has a great celebrated poet, he has devoted a great deal of this poetic imagination in describing the lake called Achoda Lake. It is a water body. He describes that in about 8 or 9 pages. It's one of the greatest descriptions of water body in any literature in the world. It is undoubtedly the best description and perhaps the longest of all in not only Sanskrit literature but any literature in the world. The famous concept of the incarnation of Lord Vishnu, the Dashavatara into 10 forms, commences with the fish. Pralaya Payodhi Jale Didavanasi Vedam. Vihida Vahitra Charitra Makhetam Keshava Dida Meena Shadira. So Pralaya Payodhi Jale. Lord started his incarnation from Jala only as a Matsya avatar. And now coming to the Subhashitas. A famous Subhashita says that Prithivyam Trini Ratnani. On earth there are 3 Ratnas. What are they? Jalam, Annam, Subhashitam. Prithivyam Trini Ratnani, Jalam, Annam, Subhashitam. First of all, water. Without water, there cannot be any world. And without food, we cannot survive. And the third best thing is Subhashitam. And all the conventional gems like, ruby or this and that, it is Subhashita, it is nothing but a Pashana Khanda. It is just a piece of broken stone. Whereas the real gem is water. Prithivyam Trini Ratnani, Jalam, Annam, Subhashitam. And one of the finest erotic lyrics in Sanskrit is the Megha Sandesha of Kalidasa. The choice of a crowd itself is questioned as it is just an inanimate combination of Dhumat Jyoti Salila Marudam Sannipataha Kwamekaha. Santeshaha Kwa Padutara Karnehi Pranibihi Prapaniyaha. Where is the cloud, which is just a combination of Dhuma, Jyoti, Salila, Marut? And how can he choose a cloud as a messenger, which has to be sent only by a person through a person? Padutara Karnehi Pranibihi Prapaniya. Only a sentient being can carry a message and send. But here, Kalidasa has used the word Ambuvaha. Ambuvahati iti Ambuvaha. Because the cloud, it is not the autumn cloud, but the cloud in the rainy season. It is carrying the water. Similarly, this cloud can carry the message. Therefore, Dhuma Jyoti Salila Marudam Sannipataha Kwamekaha Santeshaha Kwa Padutara Karnehi Pranibihi Prapaniyaha Iti Autsikyati Apareganayan Gushyakaha Tam Diyate Kamartaha Hi Prakriti Kripanaha Chetana Achetaneshu. They do not distinguish between the Sachetana or Achetana. And not only that, the choice of the word Ambuvaha is very significant. And there are many Subhashitas which strike a contrast. We have the cloud which is carrying water. We have also the ocean, which is a repository of all the water of all the rivers. Nadinam Sagarogadihi. Sarvadeva Namaskar. Yada Akashate Patitam Toyam Yada Gacchati Sagaram Sarvadeva Namaskaraha Keshavam Pradigacchati. So Nadinam Sagarogadihi. All the rivers ultimately end up in the ocean, which is why he is called as Vahini Patihi. He is the lord of all the rivers, the Sagara. But the Subhashita says that the ocean only collects the water. But what about the cloud? The cloud is giving the water. Therefore, this Subhashita says, Uchaihi Sthitihi Payodanam. The clouds are given a high status. Uchaihi Sthitihi Payodanam. Payaha Dadaditi Payodaha. The cloud. The cloud is giving water. It is giving rain for all the mankind, for all the living kind. Therefore, it is given a high position in the world. But what about the ocean? Payodinam Atasthidihi. It is only collecting the water. Therefore, it is finding a place only Adaha, below. So like that, for eulogizing the Dana also, Subhashitas make use of the water element to drive home such a good idea, like Pradama Vaisi Pitam Swayam Alpam Sparantaha. He say Vukshaha Satpurushaha Iva. The trees are like a great men, because Chayam Anyasi Kurvanti Swayam Tishtanti Adave Phalanyapi Padarthaya. And what do they do? When we water a small say coconut plant in the young stage, but what does it do? Pradama Vayasa Pitam Toyam Alpam Smarantaha. And Nihida Baraha Narikelaha Naranam. They are giving in return very tasty, the tender coconut water for generations. So like that, so many Subhashitas make use of this concept of water for driving home their ideas of dana and other good features of a sajjana. And just almost come to the end of my even in the Vikram Maurushiya, Kalidasa says that this Urvashi whom Pururas has been searching, he says Nadi Rupeniyam Dhruvam Asahamana Sa Parinata. It appears that Urvashi has converted herself into she is an Apsaras. So Nadi Rupena Yam Parinata. She has become a Nadi itself because she doesn't want to be seen by me like that. So it is very clear that any aspect of literature or religious life, we find what water is connected with that. So it is just clear that water has touched every aspect of life, the Vedas and literature and customs, from the earliest Vedic times to the present period, it has been flowing into every aspect of our social, religious, and literary life in India. And always we have this universal prayer, with which I will just conclude. What is that? Kale Varshadu Parjanyaha Prithvi Sasyashalini. So there is a universal prayer that Kale Varshadu Parjanyaha, that there be rain in the proper season, not out of the season. Because out of the season, if it rains, then it results in flooding and a lot of suffering for the mankind. Therefore, Kale Varshatu Parjanyaha Prithvi Sasyashalini. Then let this earth be green as ever. So this is the universal prayer. And with this, I just conclude my endowment lecture. Just wanted to highlight the aspect that there's a lot of scope to study this aspect of water connected to Vedic literature, to classical Sanskrit literature, and in rituals, and in Subhashitas, and very other aspects of our life. And I am very much thankful to our Professor Dayanidhi, and I also find Professor Dr. V.K. Raghavanji. My respects to you, sir. Has been the head of the Department of Sri Vaishnavism in Madras University. And I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to say a few things about this concept of apaha or water. And this is a moment which I will cherish, because whatever I am today is because of my good fortune of being the student of Dr. Narasimhacari. I had a good training under him, and Pata Smaraniya, because he is such a great, well-settled scholar, and a very fine combination of Jnana, Vinaya, Saulabhya, Saushilya, everything. And I am sure that the Department of Vaishnavism will take up publication of the great works of Dr. Narasimhacari, some of which have been published, but there are so many which are yet to be published. And I am sure it will be a fitting tribute to such a great scholar whose memory we always cherish in our lifetime. And thank you very much. Namaste. Dhanyavada.
It's a wonderful lecture on apaha. Many aspects of apaha has been said by Professor in Vedic, Purana, Itihasa, and such a way. யாரெல்லாம் வந்து நரசிம்மாச்சாரியுடைய குரலை கேட்கலையோ, இந்த குரல்ல பாதி இன்னைக்கு ப்ரொஃபஸருடைய சாயை வந்து இருந்தது. தட் மச் வே ஆஃப் ப்ரெசன்டேஷன் வந்து இப்படியே தான் இருக்கும். ப்ரொஃபஸருடைய இதுவும் இன்னும் கொஞ்சம் மிருது பாஷாவா இருக்கும் அவரது. கொஞ்சம் கிட்ட உட்கார்ந்தாதான் கேட்கணும். ஸோ வெரி இன்ஃபர்மேட்டிவ் லெக்சர். அண்ட் தோஸ் ரிசர்ச் ஸ்காலர்ஸ் want to do research in a classical or a Vedic perspective view. This is an informative session. So I thankful Professor as giving a wonderful opportunity to us to speak on water, apaha. So I am thankful for the giving a wonderful lecture. So Raghavan sir, Professor Raghavan wants to speak some words.
Respected Dr. C.S. Radhakrishnan and friends, I am very thankful to Professor Dayanidhi for providing me this opportunity to say a few words. Professor Narasimhacari has provided me so many things in this Department of Vaishnavism. Especially, he groomed me as a research scholar, or rather a professor, and put me in a right direction, because I used to accompany him more very much as time permits, I would go along with him. Such a great scholar will be so nice to call me, Raghavan, come. Mukundan is my son, he will say. He had one in Tirupati, there was an award for him, Lifetime Achievement Award. For that he was going. I knew that. I got permission from Dr. Radhakrishnan that I will go and attend that meeting. Okay, you go. I will take care of the department. Like that, MAV gave me permission. I went to Central Station, bought a ticket in unreserved compartment. In the meanwhile, Radhakrishnan phoned to Professor Narasimhacari that Raghavan is coming, sir. All of a sudden, Narasimhacari came out of his carriage, called me in the unreserved compartment. Raghavan, come on, I will take you. Come on. He called me and got down. I got down. I went to his coach. He gave the difference of amount for the carriage, the ticket, and took me for that award function. He was so affectionate towards me that he did whatever he possible to bring me up. Just I want to share this Professor C.S. Radhakrishnan's quotation now that Pratama Vayasi Pitam Toyam Alpam Smarantaha Sirasi Nishita Bara Narikela Narana Salilam Amritakalpam Dadyura Ajivitantam Nahi Kritam Upakaram Sadavo Vismaranti. Can I forget Narasimhacari is bringing me all time, whenever I accompany him, he will take me to his house, give me tea or coffee, and then please come many times to my house. Don't miss the opportunity, he will say. And madam, she was also so courteous. I miss them. I am not able to say. I will give the Tamil version of this Pratama Vayasi Pitam. Pratama Vayasi Pitam. Nandri Urvarku Cheidakal Nandri Yendu Tarungal Yanavenda Nindu Talara Valardangu Talunda Nirai Talayale Tantaru Dalal. That is Subhashita in Tamil. This Sanskrit Subhashita is very well known. So Professor Radhakrishnan has taken all serious thought to give a great lecture on Apaha. He has been groomed by Professor Narasimhacari. Narasimhacari is such a great mentor that he has given us all things which he could pass on to the next generation. Still we are searching for his good writings and we will try to cherish his memory. I am very thankful to Professor Dayanidhi for providing this opportunity. Thank you all.
ரொம்ப அருமையான ஒரு இந்த சொற்பொழிவு. இதிலே நமக்கு பேராசிரியர் ராதாகிருஷ்ணன் அவர்கள் நமக்கு இதை ஏற்றுக்கொண்டு நமக்கு ரொம்ப அழகாக தண்ணீரை பற்றி அதனுடைய மகத்துவத்தை பற்றி நமக்கு ரொம்ப அழகாக சொன்னார். ஸோ அவருக்கு பல்கலைக்கழகத்தின் சார்பாகவும் மற்றும் வைணவத்துறையின் சார்பாகவும் நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொண்டு மற்றும் ஏனைய ப்ரொஃபசர் ஃபார்மர் ப்ரொஃபசர் ஆஃப் சான்ஸ்கிரிட் டிபார்ட்மெண்ட் தியாகராஜன் சார் இருந்தார். ஸோ அவருக்கும் என்னுடைய நன்றியை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். ஸோ தோஸ் who attended the lecture, scholar and research scholar alumni, I thankful for this endowment lecture. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, one and all.
Sir,